process. So I think that's it. I think the rest of the slides are in case we went pear-shaped on the demo. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. Yes, I mean what we had to code in JavaScript is essentially you have to put the web page together. So you have to say, okay, here's our sort of wireframe. Here's our they call it a viewport, and this is where I want the tree. This is where I want the map port, and it's selecting from a menu of stuff that somebody else has already built. And you're saying, yes, I want a slider bar. Yes, I want a tree. All these are JavaScript objects which somebody's built, so you just have to configure them. You say, well, I want it this wide, and I want these items to be in the tree. So it's all kind of out of the box in a way. I mean, I haven't developed anything here, because that's not what I do. I sort of it's taken me quite a long time because that's not what I do, but I've done nothing other than configure JavaScript stuff, and it's pretty well documented, I'd say. There's a lot of code examples, and you would move faster if you were a JavaScript developer. I'm sure there are people here that would give a sort of JavaScript view on it, but the functionality, we haven't developed any of the functionality. We just used what was there. So that's certainly for a JavaScript developer. And I think this is a case where if you have JavaScript development skills available to you, if I had a JavaScript developer in Sustain where I work, I would have had them sitting by my side and saying, okay, this is what I want to do. I know that this widget does it. Go off and configure it for me and come back when you're done, because it would have taken them a lot less time than it would me.
When you were using the beta, were you bringing that in for a service, or were you running to be
It's handled through open layers. So open layers is able to bring in WMS or Google layers or Bing layers, and yes, you have to do a bit of messing around with projection. I could spend a lot of time sort of learning about projection and how much time it takes, because any time anything you do, there seems to be a projection issue somewhere along the way. But yeah, it's handled in a couple of lines by open layers. So I mean, open layers is another example, I think, of one of those things which cropped up a few years ago and is ubiquitous. If you look around at web maps on the web, a good proportion, if not most of them, will be using open layers, and certainly commercially it's used absolutely everywhere. It's not it's completely recognised, I think, as a almost a default way of doing web maps now.
You mentioned JavaScript tools.
JavaScript.
Popularizing these JavaScript tools.
So I didn't quite catch it. JavaScript. What?
JavaScript. You said there's new JavaScript engines and tools.
Yeah, libraries. Yeah. JavaScript libraries. So I mean, open layers in Geodesy and there's XJS as well, which is one that I probably should have mentioned, which is kind of used by Geodesy, are all JavaScript libraries. So they're all open source, although there are some subtle differences in licenses, but they're out there and you can use them, and they're documented, and they're at the core of what's used to actually deliver the web page. There's no HTML. I mean, there's a single HTML which just calls all the JavaScript libraries. So there's no HTML other than the stuff that's needed to just get a web page up and running.
There's more new ones coming up, and you take a look at the
there's not any I'm aware of. I mean, what I am aware of is that they're all fairly active development, and that's something which, in selecting open source packages, is a kind of criterion that is worth looking out for. I mean, if there are versions coming out every few weeks, that may be a pain because you have to think about upgrading. But what it also tells you that is that there's an active development community. That if things are wrong, they're going to get fixed. That there's new functionality likely to come along. So those packages are very much on the board, as it were, and developing over time. And you'll find that OpenLayers, I think, is on version 2.10 at the moment, and it's only recently gone up to 10.9. So it's somebody's fairly busy working.
So the performance issues you were talking about with regards to the Geodesy and Surveying, would that be your experience?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is they're big libraries. And so they take a long time to download, and if you've got a client machine which hasn't got enough memory or processing speed, it can be slow.
OpenLayers is fairly light. The Geosciences.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, I think. I mean, there are, as I say, if you're clever than I am with JavaScript and that kind of stuff, I know there's ways you can do it. I mean, for example, I'm using relatively little OpenLayers and DXT here. What I could do, if I could find the time to sit down and do it, is to profile what I'm using and then build an OpenLayers package which only use that. And that will probably be about a third of the size. And I know that's possible, and I know people have done it, and I don't want to go into too much detail here and now, although I would like to some other time. But I mean, I'm confident about the application because I know that can be done. It's just I haven't got around to doing it. Yeah.
Why is nobody written like the Dreamweaver that was written for web page design, or pre-Dreamweaver, that kind of software?
Yeah.
Websites have to be written purely for basis. Why is there a graphical interface that allows you to compose a structure, build everything in?
There are several ones around that allow you to do that, but I don't know how. I suspect that's the next level of real development in configuring these things, rather than just actually the base software. It's how to build the app if you're a non-expert. There's been several around over the past couple of years. None of them have really gone huge, but there's one or two that look like they're moving forward now.
That would be the logic.
I think that's coming. There's one. I would recommend you look at the OpenGeo website. What OpenGeo do is, as you say, exactly this. They're putting together a package, and this is, Joe was talking about business models. This is quite interesting business model from the sort of developer point of view. They're packaging all this stuff. I mean, it's pretty much the same as what I'm using. And they've got, I think it's the editor tool, which allows you to choose your own layers and to drop them in and so on. Now, I've not really used it, but I've definitely, the guys that are working for OpenGeo are some of the guys, not most of the guys, who are developing all this software. So they're a pretty clever bunch of people. So definitely worth, if you're interested in the website building delivery and trying to find ways of putting together websites without the coding, definitely look at the OpenGeo website and download their demos.
There is a plugin for Quantum GIS to load your layers, your shape path files, and then style it, and you can export it to all sorts of open layer format compatible. So we try to set up for you don't need too much, and they are trying to incorporate that coding into a desktop GIS. So post whatever you see on the screen for the other users.
Your performance issues using JavaScript may have something to do with using multiple projections. So if you're using Bing raster backgrounds, probably in some kind of projection, whereas probably you're quite doing Geosciences grid. I believe, but I'm not sure, that the JavaScript will reprojecting the points into the Newcastle projection. Probably this takes a lot of effort, and this could be one of the reasons why it is possibly a slight issue of reprojecting. It may be worth ensuring that all
think that's a good point, and that's it. I think I think the issue is there's not necessarily one simple answer. It's basically about half a dozen things. I mean, what you can do, and one thing, I think, again, without wanting to get too technical, but when you produce these tiles, what is quite slow is to produce them on the fly, because you have to send it all to the database, saying, give me this data, turn it into tiles, deliver it up. What you can do is cache them, and there are caching tools, which I am using, so that the tiles are actually all sitting in a cache. So they just have to, they're sitting in a cache on the server, so we're not having to generate tiles. We just refresh them away. If the data changes, we reseed it, we get a set of tiles. That certainly has a big impact on performance, and even if you do something very simple, you just put a cache into the pipeline, and it's pretty easy to do, and it has a dramatic effect on performance.
Thank you, Antony. We're going to have a short interlude now for about 15 minutes. Everyone can be back by 3:15, please.